Howdy, y'all. Asha Hawksworth here with another episode of Redneck Lesbian, the show that confounds my evangelical family who can't believe that God hasn't struck me down yet. It's January 2022, which means it's National Make Yourself Miserable Month. That's right. This is the time of year when we decide that we suck, so we're going to change everything in a mere 4 weeks. Gym memberships will skyrocket, only to be junked after people get tired of paying $50 a month for something they only used twice. The vegans are out there telling us all to try being vegan for a whole month, even though that means buying expensive fake food that no one likes or knows how to cook. In the meantime, all the livestock, I guess, are just supposed to live happily on farms forever, cranking out uneaten babies while farmers pay for the growing herd's food out of the goodness of their hearts. Yes, it's the time of New Year, New You, because if you're not new, then you're old, and we know what our shallow, infantile society thinks of old. Personally, I plan to make the most of this year by not changing a goddamn thing about myself. I just want to keep doing the things that I enjoy and do less of the things I don't really care to do. That sounds reasonable to me. What's unreasonable is for other people to expect that I will change to suit them. This brings me to my annual Come to Jesus Christmas card from one of my many evangelical cousins. Every year, they send a tacky card with a heartfelt message that goes along the lines of, Jesus is everyone's Lord and Savior, whether you like it or not, insert Bible verse here, and we hope that you will accept him into your heart this year so you don't burn in hell because we love you and so does he. This is, of course, the evangelical playbook. Evangelicals use the tried and true technique of love bombing their vulnerable marks, which makes the target feel really loved and special and like, oh my God, y'all, Jesus is what I've needed this whole time. Once they have you on the hook, they reel you in and baptize you. At this point, they will move every lever in their power to control everything you do, who you hang out with, what clothes you wear, and what music you listen to. This is the functional equivalent of the sociopathic boyfriend who sweeps you off your feet and is so romantic and perfect in every way, right up until you marry him. And then he takes away your phone, tells you you're a worthless cunt, and proceeds to cut you off from the people who actually care about you. In the Christmas card scenario, my cousins will be unable to get past the honeymoon stage with me, where they love me so much that they feel compelled to badger me relentlessly about my beliefs and entire way of living because they don't want to see me go to a place I don't even believe in. As a result, the conversation never closes, even though I no longer speak to any of them because they have no boundaries. As I considered this annual boatload of disrespect and hate disguised as love, I wondered what it is my cousins imagine they will achieve. I think it goes like this. I, a woman married to another woman with 2 children together, would have a miraculous epiphany and affirm Jesus as my Lord and Savior, returning to the fold of Christianity. And then what? Just go on about my business? Oh, I think not. And then the hope goes, I would see the evil of being married to a woman who is my best friend who never fucking hurt anybody, abandon her, and return home to Alabama and the not so tender mercies of my narcissistic parents. And what of the kids? Would I abandon them too in this scenario? Well, the fever dream requires me to bring the kids too, which would result in their abandonment of their other mother, assuming that our teenagers would agree to such nonsense, which they wouldn't because we raised them right. Evangelicals can't stand it when other people are living differently in the world. It's a challenge to their God's authority. It's a challenge to their beliefs. And that is why The Handmaid's Tale has never been hyperbole, and why evangelicals would happily implement some version of Gilead, because no matter how prehistoric or ridiculous you think their beliefs are, they believe them firmly and literally, and they love to see their jealous God punish sinners. My cousin's Christmas card was fed to the shredder, which has become part of my Hollywood holiday tradition. Hollywood. I think that was a Freudian slip. My main subject today is the end of modern civilization. So bear with me. In our modern society, we find ourselves living on a uniquely capitalist wheel of pain, in that most of us must sell our bodies in order to get the basics to survive. By basics, I mean food, housing, and warmth. We not only have to pimp out our labor in whatever form that takes, but too many of us have to work for multiple pimps in order to make ends meet at all, which kind of sucks. Failure to please an adequate number of low-paying pimps can leave us hungry, living on the streets, and very cold. The wheel of our economy must turn constantly at high speed, or the whole thing falls apart. We know all about this because when the pandemic forced the first shutdowns in the capitalist world, everything fucking stopped, which terrorized and terrified the capitalist pimps, who realized in a flash that the whole house of cards could come crashing down in a matter of days. This understanding is why citizens are being encouraged to protest anything resembling an anti-pandemic measure. Dead bodies won't clog the system badly enough to hurt anything, but stopping it altogether to save grandma will definitely kill the system and certain people's hoarded wealth. In spite of the best efforts of the vultures of capitalism, however, some folks are trying to find less painful ways of riding this wheel of death. This has resulted in the vultures screaming that no one wants to work anymore, which is true, and that people don't want to work for them anymore. Restaurants, retail stores, nursing homes, and public transportation are just some of the industries that have been hit hard by the Great Resignation. The supply chain has been badly affected for sure, but there are other factors at play. The pandemic, natural disasters, and of course, the sheer arrogance and stupidity of the people who thought that just-in-time inventory could be maintained indefinitely. The system keeps grinding away in large part because of its own momentum. There are so many moving pieces that if it were to stop altogether, a lot of suffering would result, because many countries are now dependent on the movement of food in particular. For proof of this, look to the United Kingdom, which stupidly withdrew from the European Union without any kind of agreement in place, and is now enjoying empty shelves in grocery stores because, newsflash, Britain is a fucking island. No imports means no food besides what they can grow themselves. It is a fact that this endlessly churning system we call neoliberal capitalism is unsustainable and is in fact killing the planet. If we pull the switch on the whole thing at once and let it stop where it stands, however, we have serious problems. And yet, if we don't start to slow it down and change things, we will have even worse problems. The good news about this scenario is that no one has to do the hard thing and make the decision to pull the plug, because the system is accomplishing that all on its own. Not to put too fine a point on it, our civilization is dying. Actively dying, unstoppably dying. The world that you know today will be gone in a few decades' time, if not sooner. Your children or grandchildren will be unable to comprehend the life you live right now. I say these things not to alarm you, but to help guide you to a state of acceptance so that you can begin to aid humanity's transition. You have probably heard of the 5 stages of grief by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. The first stage is denial, and our society has lived there for a long time. But I think a number of us have moved on to anger. Thank you, Greta Thunberg. And depression, which is actually stage 4. Our political class is either inhabiting denial, the Republicans, or bargaining, the Democrats, who foolishly believe that half measures that don't interfere with the lifestyles of the ludicrously wealthy will suffice. But we don't have any time anymore for the luxuries of screaming, alcoholism, or burying our heads in the sand. It is time to move on to acceptance. In order to accept where we are, we must confront where we are as honestly as possible, no matter how painful that is. New Agers, I know you like to bury your pain in a shallow grave because you assume that if you feel anything resembling a negative emotion that you're unenlightened and therefore not worthy of your yoga mat. But even the Buddha had to deal with negative emotions because guess what? He was a human being. Emotions are simply messengers. You can do this. And evangelicals, I know that it's hard to trust in God's plan when the world is falling apart. So maybe consider that his plan was that you wake the fuck up and start helping for a change. So listen up. We are experiencing climate change. The ice caps are melting. The seas will rise. The geography of our planet will change considerably and is changing now. We will lose many species to extinction. In addition to these monumental crises, we will probably face multiple pandemics in the coming decades and all the ills that accompany a civilization in collapse on a global scale. Some foods will become scarce or impossible to attain, depending on where you live. Power outages will become more frequent. Water will become more scarce in some areas. Our social and governmental systems, already eroding, will become so unreliable that we can no longer count on them. For example, mail and shipping will get worse. Hard to imagine, but there you have it. Quality healthcare may not always be available. Infrastructure will continue to degrade, particularly because of damage caused by natural disasters. Education may become a luxury of the elite. Crime will increase with desperation, particularly in urban areas. And the final blow will be when the US dollar is no longer the world's standard currency. When that happens, its value will fall dramatically, and Americans will find themselves holding yet another worthless fiat currency. In the midst of all this turmoil, demagogues and nationalists will attempt to gain power, as we see them doing even now. Now, again, my point is not to make you despondent. I want you to accept that our civilization is actively collapsing and that change is upon us. By accepting this, we can begin to highlight the kinds of work we need to do. No one person can fix it all. What we must do is work together to make the most of our skills and talents, to fix the things we can, and basically to build lifeboats. So how do we do that? When a system is so corrupt that it fails, you cannot fix the system. You might as well put a Band-Aid on a broken bone. When we know that a system is dying, the way that we can mitigate the pain of its end is to create something new in its place. This will require some creativity. The last thing we want to do is create something similar to the old system that never worked well anyway. For example, let's take power outages. We can imagine what we'll need when blackouts occur. So make sure you have a hurricane lamp or two, or a hand-cranked radio, or a wood stove. Also, we can work together to green up our houses and businesses with backup power. The advances in wind and solar are made every day. Those who are good at designing technology can do that. Those who are good at getting technology implemented in communities can do that. Those with the wherewithal can help their neighbors. Don't panic. Instead, imagine new routines. Or maybe you love to teach and you want to create a new paradigm for teaching. Just do it, my friend. Find like-minded people and just do it. Do you have a green thumb? Imagine a world where food trucks don't always make it to your town. How can you feed people locally when that happens? As the insane American healthcare system crumbles, communities can create health co-ops where people can pay what they can afford on a sliding scale on a regular basis. This means a group of people need to create the co-op, recruit medical personnel, and come together with a community. Really, community is the point. All of these people who build cabins in the woods and go off grid aren't appreciating the full picture. I don't know what gene made white people think that they have to do everything by themselves. This is not a call to go back to lone wolf homesteading. This is instead a call to return to the tribe, a multicultural tribe at that. Because you can't be the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker. Just do what you're good at. Just that thing. But do it with the community in mind. Do it for the community and with the community. Not because you're a social butterfly or you want to win the Lions Club Do-Gooder of the Year award, but because you want your family to survive and you want to live in a place where life can thrive. None of us can do this alone, and anyone who thinks they can or thinks they should get more than their fair share is already lost. Yeah, there's still going to be people out there with their heads in the sand, living on denial and depression. It's not your job to save everybody. It's your job to connect with the people who are committed to change. We don't all have to work at this, but enough of us do. We need enough people to help humanity transition to what this new world is going to look like so we can survive. We need to be in the business of building lifeboats wherever we are. Lifeboats and connected communities that can weather the coming storms. This doesn't mean you have to find a readout somewhere full of people who think exactly like you. In fact, please don't. We have got to quit being afraid of the folks on the other side of the political spectrum if we're going to make it. Liberals, conservatives have skills you need. Conservatives, liberals have skills you need as well. This whole red team, blue team nonsense is just like professional wrestling. It's all make-believe designed to keep you from coming together because then you'd be dangerous to the elites. But if we can't come together on the local level, most of us are not going to make it. The folks on your street who are flying the Trump 2024 flag, we have them here, are probably scared too. They may not be interested in your lifeboat, but if they are, you shouldn't discount them. So we're all going to have to figure out how to talk to people from different backgrounds. This doesn't mean you have to invite white supremacists to dinner. You can tell which people you need to avoid and which ones you can find common ground with. As you go about it, here's a suggestion. Drop all of the labels. Do not call yourself a liberal, a Democrat, a Republican, a conservative, not anything. Because the moment a label appears in a conversation, people shut down. So don't use them. Create your tribe, people, then start doing the work. Who knows where the next big ideas will come from? The only thing I know for sure is that they won't arise from a system that is actively failing. Thanks for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. Send comments to rednecklesbian2020@gmail.com and take care of yourselves. Talk to you later.